Our debate will focus on the Virgin Islands' political relationship with the United States. Our two teams, the proposition and the opposition, will argue for and against this motion. The Virgin Islands needs to ratify a constitution before defining its continued political relationship with the United States of America. During the debate, the audience is expected to be polite and avoid cheering or making outbursts, except when welcoming the debaters. The debate will be structured into 3 5-minute segments, beginning with a presentation of the proposition team, followed by the opposition team. Rebuttals will be presented by the second member of each team, and judges will be given the opportunity to ask questions for clarification at the designated time. The debate will conclude with closing statements from one member of each team. After the debate, the audience will have a chance to ask questions and offer their opinions using personal mobile devices, but the judge's decision will be final. Please note that the arguments presented tonight may not personally represent the opinions of the debaters nor the elections system of the Virgin Islands. Our judges this evening are Lisa Moorhead, Esquire, a member of the Board of Elections of the Virgin Islands. Janine Francis Brown, a communications strategist at the University of the Virgin Islands, and Galen Vogel, Esquire, a partner at the law firm of Barnes, Damore, and Vogel. We will tell you more about them later in the program. Our timekeepers will ensure that the debaters adhere to the times allotted to their arguments. They are Alicia Wells, Board Chairperson, Election System of the Virgin Islands. Atanya Springett-Bushalty, Election Systems Board Member, and Laurel Francis, Elections Official. During the debate, the audience is expected to be polite and avoid cheering or making outbursts, as I said earlier. The debate will conclude with closing statements from each team. After the debate, the audience will have a chance to ask questions. So let's get started with round one. Each debater has 5 minutes for opening arguments. Attorney Michael Joseph will present first for the proposition. Michael Joseph, Esquire, born and raised on St. Croix, is a product of public schools and Upward Bound, a college preparatory program at the Den College of the Virgin Islands. Attorney Joseph is a doctor of jurisprudence from Golden Gate University as legislative director to the Honorable Delegate to Congress Ron DeLugo. Attorney Joseph walked through the 4th proposed constitution, which was returned to the Virgin Islands intact for ratification. Joseph is a board member of the election system of the Virgin Islands. Attorney Joseph.
Well, good evening, and I'm honored to be here because when I was in 9th grade at Claudia Marcus School, one of the presidents gave me the last paddling I had in school. Isn't that amazing? And now I get to ratify a constitution. This is, old saying is that you got to know where you come from to know where you're going. Well, we've been coming a long way as Virgin Islanders, people of the Virgin Islands, and citizens since 1927 as citizens of the United States, and we remain non-self-governing, but we have made progress. We are now at our 6th attempt to create a constitution. A constitution, as you know, is a coming together of the voting public, which will propose for ratification a constitution which was created by we the people through a delegation. We have before us a sixth chance to ratify such a constitution. But why take 6 attempts? That's the million-dollar question. And how do we defeat that question so that we can create a ratified constitution? So I will have to tell you quickly, with the 4th attempt, we had not any problem in Congress. It was immediately ratified. Well, I should say approved by the United States Congress and sent back for ratification. There were some issues in it, so it didn't work. Then we came to the 5th Constitution attempt, and that was sent back with 9 issues. The legislature of the Virgin Islands, against the wishes of the then delegate to the Congress, the Honorable Donna Christensen, sent a letter to the legislature and said, you have usurped the process, and please call the convention back in session so they can deal with these 9 issues. These 9 issues were not issues that were deal breakers. They needed explaining to Congress for Congress to endorse them, and I think that Constitution would have passed. Instead, the legislature never called back the delegation, and so we are now on the 6th attempt. My brother here, longtime friend, have spent 20 years in the Navy, and so I walk with the Navy since the Navy were the first ruling authority of these territories. And he will have a perspective where we started from more than 100 years ago. And the United States took 164 years to finally create the current Constitution. So we're still years ahead of that long travel. And so we should not feel in any way that we're different than the United States in that journey of development. And so I would close by saying that the United States Constitution first objective is justice. And a non-self-governing people deserve justice, and that justice can only come as it did through the United States, as it did for the United States, was through the current Constitution it has. And so we deserve that justice. And I'm a little amateur of history, but I would like to leave this with you in my opinion. The proponent, the instigator of the United States Constitution, the current Constitution of 1787, was none other than a young man who came to St. Croix at 8 years old, and is on your $10 bill, if any of you have one in your pocketbook, Alexander Hamilton. And he said, the most useful part of my education was my time in St. Croix. So at least we know we in St. Croix like constitutions. We instigated the United States Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Joseph. Next is Attorney Devin Carrington for the opposition. Devin Carrington is a native Virgin Islander attorney, former commissioner of the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs, educator, perseveranist, and community volunteer. He has served on the boards of the Casino Control Commission and the Water and Power Authority. His recent campaign for senator focused on community issues, including the importance of implementing a comprehensive land and water use plan. Attorney Carrington holds a social sciences degree from the University of the Virgin Islands and a law degree from Nova Southeastern University. Attorney Carrington.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Bob Marley said, "Every man has the right to decide his own destiny." So when I read the motion that we presented with, the question I ask is whether the VI is seeking self-government, simply self-government, or self-determination. There's a distinction. Self-government in this context, in the context of a colony, is simply a grant by a foreign power to do this or that. On the other side, self-determination is an inherent human right that we are born with, and self-determination is something that we exercise without external compulsion, without external interference. So the question is, what are we looking for? Free choice, our own compulsion without outside interference, or we simply want to ratify a document with prescribed parameters and limitations that are given to us, that is given to us by an outside power. I see ratification of a constitution as simply a perfunctory act by which we say yes or no to a document that is given to us with limitations and a set of predefined parameters. I see self-determination as us being able to craft the type of society we want to craft without outside interference, which is truly what self-determination means. All right? And so, if we look at Public Law 94.584, which is the federal law that gives us the authority to craft a constitution, it comes with limitation, it comes with restrictions, it's prescribed. And just as the senators know, when the governor sends down a contract, you either vote it up or you vote it down. You have no way to change that. And so I see the ratifying of a constitution that's prescribed from somebody else as something that we need not be doing. I also see that there's a legal basis. Before I go on to that, let me say to this. Historically, you always need to define your status before you put the document in action, a constitution which actually defines what that status you've determined is. For example, the Declaration of Independence came in 1776. That was a declaration of status. It was followed by the ratification of a constitution in 1788. So, the Declaration of Status came before the ratification of a constitution. Similarly, the Northern Marianas, when they did their compact with the United States, they declared what their status was, and then within 6 months after the declaration of that status, they approved a new constitution. And there's a bill in Congress, H.R. 8393, which is authorizing Puerto Rico to do a referendum on status. And after the status vote is taken, if independence or free association is chosen, the parameters of that bill speak to then crafting a constitution. So what I'm saying to you is self-determination of status precedes a constitution. It's historically been done that way, and that's the way we should do it. If In fact, self-determination is our goal. We need to define who we are, why we're here, what is our plan as a people. The answer to these types of questions define our status. There's also a legal basis for self-determination prior to a constitution. The United States is a signatory and a founder of the United Nations. The United Nations has a myriad of declarations and resolutions that call for the need of, call for self-determination for those entities like us who don't have self-determination. And so I see I have 20 seconds left, and I shall wrap it up right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Carrington. This concludes round one, and I'm sure you will agree that both sides had compelling arguments. Now, you may. Now we will return in just a few minutes after a commercial break to hear the rebuttals from the first presentations. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the great debate. Now it's time for round two. Again, the motion this evening is the Virgin Islands needs to ratify a constitution before defining its continued political relationship with the United States of America. During this second round, the second proposition speaker and the second opposition presenter will have 3 minutes each to present their rebuttals. No new arguments will be allowed during the rebuttal. We will begin with the proposition's case presented by Mr. Alex Joseph. Mr. Alex Joseph was educated in the public schools of St. Thomas. He served 20 years in the United States Army, always dedicated to preserving and celebrating people, events, culture, and community that make the Virgin Islands a unique part of the United States. Mr. Joseph authored 10 articles for the Centennial Collection published by the VI Daily News in 2017, featuring notable Virgin Islanders. Mr. Joseph.
Good evening. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here. I'm not an attorney like both of the previous speakers. I'm just a common man. I enjoy Virgin Islands history, and in being here, I am just here to represent the common person. In doing this debate, you heard Attorney Carrington speak about the Constitution and the status. Just to give you a background, as far as Virgin Islands history and the Virgin Islands having become an American possession in 1917, Attorney Michael Joseph also told you that it took 162 years for the United States of America to form a constitution. Right now, the Virgin Islands is at 126th year being a territory. And we still have a ways to go to get this constitution done. In 1917 to 1927, the people of the Virgin Islands were not citizens of any country. In 1931, after being ruled by the U.S. Navy since 1917, the Virgin Islands got their first civilian governor of the Virgin Islands. Prior to that, there had been many attempts at an organic act started by Rothschild Francis to get it done. It never happened 1923 through 1924. An attempt was made, he went before Congress, and it was denied. 1926, another attempt was made, and it was turned down again. In 1936 was when the Organic Act was ratified for the Virgin Islands. Then ratified again in 1954 with the revised Organic Act. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Next is Ms. Beryl Todman for the opposition. Beryl Todman was born in Tortola, British Virgin Islands, completed high school in the British Virgin Islands, and pursued further studies in New York City at LaGuardia Community College. Ms. Todman has had a diverse career of leadership and shaping policy in the public and private sectors, including as the Department of Labor's Chief of Planning, Research, and Monitoring, and currently as the Integrity Coordinator for the Unemployment Insurance Unit. Ms. Totman serves on the board of directors for the Methodist Training and Outreach Center, a nonprofit providing education and support to the vulnerable population. She has been involved in local politics over 2 decades, including working on several gubernatorial campaigns. Now we will hear from Ms. Todman.
Good evening, and thank you so much. And I'm grateful to be here this evening, and I hope I can share some good information to all listeners and the audience who's here, and via YouTube, Facebook. Welcome. So I want to start by going back to the reason we're here this evening. The motion, the Virgin Islands needs to ratify a constitution before defining its continued political relationship with the United States of America. And so what do we really mean? What do we mean by that? Do we want to determine whether we want to be self-governance? We want to be self-determination, which means that self-determination is without outside structure, without interference, we can determine our own destiny. Is that what we really want to do? Or do we want to ratify the Constitution, the fifth Constitution, as it is now presented to us? My view on this is that we should go for self-determination, where we have an opportunity to set our own destiny, decide who we are, what we want to do, how we want to develop ourselves as a country. And in order to do that, I'm proposing that we look back at the legal basis for self-determination prior to a constitution. So the self-determination is a fundamental right recognized by the United Nations. Under the United Nations Charter, self-determination is defined as people's right to freely choose their sovereignty and international political status with no interference. Sovereignty can generally be defined as having the sole ultimate authority to act. So we don't need someone to tell us how to act. We can decide that for ourselves. Broadly speaking, the term self-determination also refers to the free choice of one's own acts without external compulsion. So are we ready to handle that? I think we can, and I hope you think so too. My partner talked to you. Oh, my time, I have 20 seconds. Okay, so I want to thank you, and I'll go with my next round.
You're so obedient. Thank you, Ms. Todman. I think it's heating up right about now. There's lots to think about. They've presented lots of information for us to consider. And now that concludes round 2. We'll return in a few minutes after a commercial break, at which time the judges will be allowed to ask questions of the presenters. Stay tuned. and ready to hear from our judges before the closing arguments from each team. Judges will have the opportunity before the closing arguments by the speakers to clarify any arguments raised that would impact on their final scoring of the debate. Collaboratively, the three judges will have decided on two questions which the head judge will ask both sides. Both teams should answer both questions. The team members will quickly decide who will answer each question for their team and will have 1 minute to answer each question. Judges, proceed.
Good evening. People hear me?
No, you need the mic.
Good evening. And thank you, everybody, for your participation thus far. The first question will be, as the moderator said, addressed to both sides. And despite which side you're on, the question is, what is the strongest argument of your opposition and why? Either side can start. Want to start with we should probably start with the proponents. The question is, what is your opposition's strongest argument and why?
Self-governing territory. We are unincorporated territory, which means that we are left out of the other membership of the United States due to the fact that they were deemed to be inchoate states. We are unincorporated, and that's the best argument for status that can be made. The Constitution, however, shows that we may be ready for advancement towards that incorporation. And that's my point.
I think the best argument of the other side of the proponent is the fact that if, within the context of an unincorporated, non-self-governing territory, we want to ratify a constitution that is brought to us, prescribed to us, well, go ahead and do that. My argument is this, that without self-determination, without or within the context of an unincorporated territory, the best thing to do is to ratify a constitution that is sent to you by somebody else. And that's a strong argument on their side.
References made, I think, by both sides that both teams seem to feel that the people of the Virgin Islands are ready for their particular position, whether it's to ratify a constitution or to go for self-determination. If you believe that's true, that the Virgin Islands populace is ready to undertake this task, tell me why it is you believe that our people are ready for this move.
In response to that question, as far as the people being ready, in 2020, the Virgin Islands Election Board had a proposal on there for the Organic Act to be utilized as the Constitution of the Virgin Islands. And 72% of the voting populace voted to have that done. The people have always been told that they were never ready. From 1917, 1927, 1931, that the people were never ready. There was a district court judge called George Washington Williams that went to Washington with Rothschild Francis. And he proposed at that time that the people of the Virgin Islands were not ready for an Organic Act. When are we going to be ready?
As the people of the Virgin Islands has been ready. Bordeaux showed that we're ready. Queen Mary showed that we're ready. The coal workers, the queens in St. Thomas showed that we're ready. Rothschild Francis showed that we're ready. Hubert Harrison showed that they're ready. There's no test for readiness of nationhood. It's about heart. And we've never been given the opportunity to show that we're ready. Self-determination is a human right that nobody grants to us. We have the right to exercise that. We are ready as anybody else was ready.
Thank both of you for your responses.
You're welcome.
Do you have another question? Righty, time is up. Thank you, judges, and thank you, presenters. Now we'll take a short break, and we will be back for closing arguments. Closing arguments by the presenters, the final focus should be a compelling restatement of why the judges should vote pro or con. The chosen team member will have 3 minutes to articulate which arguments weigh most importantly on the decision. No new arguments will be accepted. We'll start with the proposition team.
In 1991, I think it was, I was in Kemet, Egypt, and I saw what was called the 41 Principles of Ma'at, that is, morality, where the African people says, I have not killed, I have not raped, I have not lied, I have not done wrong. We, as a people, have always been ready for decency, for democracy, for doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. A constitution simply is the legal structure by which we can get that done best and most efficient and most fairly. Judges, to vote for ratification of a constitution would be to advance those basic rights. Of course, a person has a right to destiny, but we have over 5,000 years ago have reached that point of morality, of decency, and so all we have to do now is to enact procedures which is embodied in the Constitution. And so, although the United States of America does not allow us to vote for it, it also does not tax us on certain matters. And so that is for a further development. But as for now, we have to show that we can manage ourselves the same way the United States manages itself and go into partnership. And I see the day when we will have 2 senators and at least 1 member of the House of Representatives based on our smaller population. But certainly intellectually, we are far more than ready, and that status itself will emerge from ratification of a constitution. Thank you.
If it's the choice of this territory, this colony, to remain an unincorporated territory, then ratifying a predefined constitution is the way to go. But for 400 plus years, our people have been denied the right to self-determination through slavery, through emancipation, through the transfer. Our fate has always been determined by external people, by external forces. And so, this denial of self-determination is a denial of a human right. And the paternalistic incremental steps through which we are given self-government have not always accrued to our benefit. The legal fiction of unincorporated territory, the delayed citizenship, the delayed steps in giving us self-government, the disparate treatment in federal programs, the minimal rum cover over monies, no oil excise monies returned to us, no control over immigration, a 3-mile limit on our coastlines. All these things are products of our status. We need to be able to self-determine. We can, we are intelligent, we've got people all over the United States helping to build that nation. It's about time that we bring our people back and make a determination to build our own nation. We are capable, we are able, we've got the intelligence. Let's do it.
Well, there you have it. This concludes tonight's great debate. Thank you, presenters, for a very lively and educational debate. Good luck to both teams. While the judges are finalizing their individual scores and handing them to our tabulators to determine who will be this evening's winning team, we want to tell you a little bit more about them. But before I talk about the judges, I'd like to clarify that Mr. Joseph was proudly serving the United States Navy, not the Army, for 20 years. Attorney Lisa Harris Moorhead chose the beautiful Virgin Islands as her permanent home 50 years ago and continues her passion for matters of civic responsibility and community activism that affect the territory. Attorney Moorhead has been a Board of Elections member for 14 years, now serving her 4th term. She has served in the public sector as a teacher, law clerk, commissioner of labor, code reviser, and legislative counsel. She holds a bachelor's degree in sociology from the University of Pennsylvania and a Juris Doctorate in constitutional law from the University of Pennsylvania Carey Law School. Now semi-retired, Attorney Moorhead finds great joy in her work with the homeless community and representing indigent clients in appointed criminal matters. Janine Francis Brown, give her her due, that's correct. Next, we have Janine Francis Brown, who is a seasoned program manager at the University of the Virgin Islands. She is responsible for communication strategy and website development of the Territorial Hazard Mitigation and Resilience Plan and coordinating grant management activities for the Caribbean Green Technology Center. She is a native Virgin Islander with over 28 years in project implementation, strategic planning, and change management. Ms. Francis Brown, she's really Mrs. Francis Brown, holds several professional certifications and a mini MBA in digital marketing from Rutgers University, Master of Arts in Business Education from New York University, and a Bachelor of Science in Economics from Wagner College. With many years of experience in management and improving business performance, Mrs. Francis Brown returned home to assist in building capacity on the territory's road to resilience. Next, we have Galen Vogel, who is a partner at the law firm of Barnes, DeMoore, and Vogel. She previously clerked at the U.S. Election Assistance Commission. She has a JD and Masters of Public Arts in Public Policy from the George Washington University and a BA in Political Science from the Pennsylvania State University, where she was on the speech and debate team. She moved to the Virgin Islands over 16 years ago to clerk for Chief Justice Reese Hodge at the Superior Court and also at the Virgin Islands Supreme Court. Since moving to the Virgin Islands, she has been a poll worker at every election. Thank you for your service, ladies. And now we will go to break one more time. And welcome back. We're now ready for a few questions from the audience to the debaters. Please keep your questions short and to the point. You will be allowed 1 minute to ask your question. The presenter to whom the question is posed will be allowed 1 minute for the response. Question from the audience.
Thank you. Gwen Marie Molinar, League of Women Voters of the Virgin Islands. I would like to thank the presenters who made some interesting arguments. However, and in particular, I was very happy that Mr. Carrington made the distinction between self-government and self-determination, because that is central to my question here. As you know, many people in the community feel that we are far closer to resolving the issue of a constitution than we are for political status. There are many people who felt that the question of political status was far more problematic, and that self-governance was being held hostage by the fact that we could not really come to a decision about self-determination. And you were inaccurate in saying that we weren't given the opportunity for self-determination, because there was a vote on self-determination here in the territory, which failed miserably because people came out, and we see that this is going to continue. There are so many issues about governance that need resolving now. You speak to the governor, speak to the legislators. There are issues that need resolving now and really shouldn't be held hostage until we get to self-determination. So I would ask Mr. Carrington to please respond to what is the main objection you have to doing self-governance that does not obviate the possibility of self-determination later on. So let's get all of these issues handled first and take our time with resolving the matter of self-determination. Remember that the Revised Organic Act is not the same document that was first developed. We had Alexander Hamilton, we had so many, not Alexander Hamilton, we had Rothschild Francis and so many Virgin Islanders who changed that original act. So it is not the colonial document that many refer to.
I hear your question, and I'll answer it this way. It's been 1917 is when we were purchased by the United States. It's been 105 years, give or take, yes? 106? 126? Yeah, my math is, I was failed at math. How long do we wait to be able to self-determine? When America was founded, governance wasn't perfect. Governance in America still isn't perfect. So do we wait another 126 years to perfect self-governance before we get a chance to self-determine? I say that we can self-determine while perfecting self-governance. That's my argument. Give us the chance. Let us exercise our human right to self-determination. It's really funny, very hypocritical for me. When we raise our kids, I've got 6 of my own, I'm sure you have. You tell them go to school. You tell them to get a trade, get an education, so that they can become self-determinative and not dependent on other people. But here we are, for 126 years, continually dependent on someone else, not independent, not self-dependent. I'm saying that as a human right, we need to exercise that self-dependence.
Next question, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Judith Bourne. I've been an attorney here for, much too long, since 1977. And I've been involved in status discussions since they began in the 80s. I just would want to point out that in 1982, in the only referendum dealing with status in which a sufficient number of voters actually voted such that the outcome was valid. The voters determined that they wished to deal with the status question before dealing with the Constitution. That was, 40-something years ago. Since then, there has been a very limited amount of discussion amongst the general public with regard to the issues. Since my concern is that a vote or the adoption of a constitution would be seen by many people in the community as an act of self-determination, which it clearly is not. What is it over these past years, besides the passage of time, that invalidates the results of that referendum?
The question is for?
Whoever wishes to answer. Michael, thank you.
Because a constitution is in fact self-determination. A constitution, I repeat, the United States Constitution has been the most copied political document in the world. There, other than the Soviet Union, China, and the Baltic area, the United States Constitution is the most by far, legal document for the determination of the people of the earth with human rights and dignity. The problem with the relationship between America and the Virgin Islands is one in which began with the insular cases, in where Justice Brown stated that we do not want to impose the Anglo-Saxon concept of ordered liberty upon these people that had counsels. They were not accustomed to the jury trial system, but we have come a long way from that. The problem with the Constitution, to grab the bull by the horn, is immigration. We have been subject to more immigrants that can vote than native that can vote. It's the only place on earth we have more voters that are of immigrant origin and those that are of native origin. And defining who is a Virgin Islander has been the elephant in the room. But as for a constitution that is a pure concept of the coming together of a people and agreeing on the rights of wrong of a community. And therefore, it is a form, in fact, the highest form of self-determination.
Interesting answer by Attorney Joseph. But a very interesting question, Attorney Bourne. And I just want to piggyback on something that Attorney Joseph just said. In my opening statement, I did say that the United States is a signatory and a member of the United Nations, and as a signatory is bound by its resolutions, its proclamations, its declarations. And there is a resolution 35-118 that says, member states shall adopt the necessary measures to discourage or prevent the systematic influx of outside immigrants and settlers into territories under colonial domination, which disrupts the demographic composition of those territories and may constitute a major obstacle to the genuine exercise of the right of self-determination and independence by the people of those territories. And I read that to try to explain that possibly by design, the results of the election, the referendum that you spoke to on status, was not followed through. I think you said it was 1982? Between 1982 and now, the demographics of these Virgin Islands have changed considerably. And I believe that if that referendum were to be held today, the results would be quite different. And so I just bring that tidbit to say that by design, possibly, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but by design, having ignored that referendum may be exactly what's being planned, what's being used as an obstacle to greater self-determination. And I don't say that in any way to disparage anybody from any place, but there are a set of people who are of here, not just from here, but who are of here, who have never gotten the chance to exercise self-determination. And that self-determination is a human right, and the longer we wait to make that determination, I fear that we're going to lose. That right will never mean anything again.
Thank you for the question, and presenters, you did well. Next question, please.
My name is Gail Schultebrandt Rivera, and I welcome the opportunity to say a few words. My profession is nutrition, and I've worked all my life as a career professional in nutrition for the Virgin Islands government. I was very, very upset at the way the last constitutional convention, the outcome. I was very disturbed at the conduct of some of the delegates and government officials that were involved in the process. I found out that the United Nations has procedures that are to be followed in the process of self-determination. And what I saw, the conduct of some of the delegates to that last constitution, I was embarrassed and disgraced. If you're on this convention and you disagree with the direction that it's going in, then I think you should leave. But what happened is that we had some of the members went to Washington and bad talk our Constitution. How embarrassing can you get? The Organic Act is not a constitution. And I also am very, very disturbed that we would consider to use it as a constitution.
I hate to interrupt you, but we need to hear the actual question because we're timed.
So my question is that since it is not, it was never intended to be a constitution. We have the ability to write our own constitution. So why would we consider a document that was not written by the people for the people, and you're going to allow a document like that with an ugly history like that to be rammed down our throats?
So we will entertain the question. Attorney Carrington, you want to start this time?
You know, words are really important. Words really mean something. And when you use the title organic before the word act, something organic is something that grows from the soil. Something that, in this political sense, comes from the people. 1936 didn't come from the people. 1954 didn't come from the people. I do agree that we have had activists of the people who have fought hard to change parameters of both documents. But at their basis, none of them were organic. None of them came from us. None of them were a product of self-determination. So my argument tonight has been your argument, that unless and until we are able to craft a document that comes from the people, then it's not an act in self-determination. It's an act in simply ratification.
Well, I saw one time a movie called The Great Debaters. And the story of the great debaters is when the debaters agree that your answer, sir, is perfect, true, for the reason for us to form a constitution and have a ratified constitution. We both agree on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ancestral, indigenous, native Virgin Islander.
Thank you for that.
And this is my country. I love it. And I'm very disturbed at, some of the things that are being debated. And if possible, I'd like to come back. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
And thank you. Thank you all so much for your questions. Voting has ended. We'll be right back with the results and closing remarks by Supervisor Caroline Fox and the ESVI Board Chair, Alicia Wells. We'll be right back. Welcome back. And now the moment we've been waiting for. The votes have been tabulated, and now we'll learn who won tonight's great debate. Before we started the debate, it's interesting to note that 77.8% of the audience agreed with the question. So let's go back to the question, right? Well, when I find it. Well, for the ratification, and that the proponents were Attorney Michael Joseph and Alex Joseph. And so 22.2% disagreed. Well, after the survey, 50% agreed with the motion and 50% disagreed with the. So congratulations, congratulations. That was the audience. But right now, I'd like for you to pause for a moment and help me to welcome the board chair of the election system, Ms. Alicia Wells, the Ms. Caroline Fox, the supervisor of elections, and the St. Thomas deputy supervisor of elections, Ms. Kiva May Douglas.
Good evening. Welcome. I must say, and we all knew this before, women run things. Look at all the women in the audience. Give us a round of applause. On a serious note, this is a great undertaking for the election system of the Virgin Islands, and I'd like to personally thank Mrs. Fox. She runs a tight ship. She keeps you going, and she calls you all kinds of hours of the night. Mrs. Fox, you did really, really well, and we expect some more of these. The last debate I was telling somebody that we had was held at the Westin on St. John when the St. John Community Foundation, and Senator Bolkes could testify to that. The St. John Community Foundation used to have those, and we had the Senator at Large, Craig Barsinger was the one who would always have to yell out time because we didn't have all these nice little notes that Brian gave us here to make it run smoothly. But it went well, so we've really progressed from then to now, and we hope to do so further into the future. I'd like to thank all the participants. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank our judges. Thank you very much. And you, the audience, like I said, we have Mr. Bolkes, Senator Bolkes, I could see, and we have Mr. Whitman Brown. But we want you to have some more other persons, men, to come when you come to these things. So pack up your car and bring them. I cannot leave out Donna Fred Gregory, our senator. Thank you for coming. I think those are all the senatorial people here. But then, of course, we have our board persons. Member Mercer, please stand and be recognized. Our board member, Michael Esquire, I call him. Oh. Member Tanya Springett Bushelta. Timekeeper like I was, and member Lisa Moorhead. Thank you. All the judges who have worked with us over the years of election, and I don't want to start calling names because we know who they are, and you always leave somebody out, but you always show up. Whenever we need you, you're there. So judges and whatever else you've done for the election system, all those years ago, we thank you and we appreciate you, and we're glad that you're continuing to do that up until now, so thank you so much. This was really an interesting exercise, and like I said, we hope to do more of these. Mrs. Fox is going to tell you about the other plans that she has. We're celebrating our 60th year, you know that. So those persons who didn't come to our gala, you're here for this portion, and we have more to come, so we hope that you'll celebrate. And let people know that that election system is on the move. This is only the 60th year. We expect 60 more years where our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be there. Claudette, I'd like to welcome you also, a past board member, Claudette Georges. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thriving with Integrity Election System celebrates 60. What an amazing evening. Both teams did an amazing job, and the moment that you've been waiting for. Based on the judges' scores, the winning team is the opposing team of attorney Devin Carrington and Miss Beryl Tadman. Congratulations to both teams.
Would you please come forward? Sure you can.
No, you need to go over here to see the presentation.
But he
No,
will
not
need
right
to
now.
say something.
No, this is under the, your team, stand up, your teammates, it's team.
You're gonna have to keep it one bit here, and then you have to give it to her the next time. We're presenting a gavel to the winning team, and we hope that they use it wisely. Mr. Carrington asked how they're going to share it. I guess they're gonna have to probably cut it down the middle or something. But you know, we're resourceful, so you'll find a way. And you have to put your hands so we can get post pictures, miss.
You won't let me. Production. Again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending the great debate, whether via social media or in person. Thank you, participants, board members, staff, election officials, media, and UVI for making another one of our 60th anniversary events a success. I know the ideas expressed here this evening will be conversations beginning tomorrow and into the future. The goal is to continue the education on this topic by adding another piece to the puzzle. I would like to also now highlight the other events we have scheduled throughout this year. And we say we will celebrate for the whole year. We have events quarterly, monthly. Episode 2, which will be upcoming in June, will be our interviews with the former governors. Episode 3 will be the longest serving senators, plus the delegate to Congress. Episode 4 will be our present governor with board members. We do have a forum, naturalization, home is where my vote is. And finally, we'll be doing an election trivia pursuit, which is a civic quiz bowl for the high schools, public and parochial. So stay tuned, you will be hearing a lot more. We're keeping busy. Elections is not just election every 2 years. Thriving with Integrity, election system celebrates 60. Thank you. Get home safe.
Our program for tonight has come to an end. We express our gratitude to the University of the Virgin Islands for their warm hospitality. We also extend a sincere thank you to the debaters, the judges, timekeepers, and ESVI volunteers who contributed to the success of this event. We especially appreciate you, our audience, for joining us this evening. We hope that this debate has stimulated your thoughts about the future of our territory. Thank you.